Good morning, everybody out there in YouTube land. All my chatters in the chat room, all my lurkers that are lurking, and all my Memorex viewers that'll watch it later on. Glad to have you with me today. It is a beautiful day here in Indiana with a nice, gentle rain coming down. It rained a little bit yesterday, not nearly enough, so this is just wonderful for it to be raining like this. No storming, just nice, gentle rain. And it's peaceful. There's hardly any breeze blowing at all out there, and the temperature in the low 70s. Beautiful day. Here it is, the 15th day of August. We're about halfway through the month and more than halfway through the year. It's just flying right on by. We've got lots and lots of news to bring you today. Let's see. First of all, we'll get this thing shut down so it don't echo, and then we'll go over here to the news. And let's see. We've got wonderful articles to bring to you today. Mercy sakes, what all has gone on? CNN reports the JFK airport all clear given after report of shots. New York and the all clear at John F. Kennedy International Airport after reports Sunday night inside the Terminal 8 at New York law enforcement, or a New York law enforcement official told CNN. Two people reported hearing what they thought were shots fired. Law enforcement sources said police went floor to floor to clear the airport and ensure that there was nothing to be found, a source said. Surveillance video from inside the terminal did not show any shooting. Port Authority of New York and New Jersey evacuated the terminal to be cautious. Spokesman Joe Pentagallo, I guess it is, said there were no injuries or arrests. Video and photos from the scene showed hundreds of stranded passengers waiting outside the terminal. Wen-Jae Sung, 37, a traveler from Arcadia, California, said he came out of the bathroom around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday and started following a stream of people walking in one direction. An airport worker started yelling at the crowd to keep moving, Sung said. Sung did not see any law enforcement officers until baggage claim, and then I saw some more going up an escalator with very big guns. The quick police response was reassuring, he said. Sung said he walked away from the airport around 11 p.m. The highway is right next to Terminal 8, and I just followed a bunch of people, Sung said. There were cabs picking people up right off the highway, and Uber drivers were everywhere. Hundreds of bags and suitcases were left behind as passengers ran out of the airport. Law enforcement officials said it's possible that hoax 911 calls and word of mouth led to the panic. Officials are working to figure out exactly what happened, a law enforcement official said. And then it goes on, it says, in addition to Port Authority police, the New York Police Department had its Hercules strike teams, Critical Response Command, Strategic Response Group, Emergency Service Unit, and patrol cops on the scene, according to New York law enforcement officials. So they had a big hoopla over at the airport. Mercy sakes. Makes you wonder what exactly it was that somebody heard that made them think that it was a gunshot going off, don't you? Okay, well, we'll move on to the next one here, and this is from BizPac Review. It says, did Milwaukee rioters forget who their sheriff is? David Clark's about to shut them down. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark has requested the National Guard be called in to quell the violent riots in his city. Sheriff Clark said he spoke with Governor Scott Walker and Major General Donald Dunbar before requesting the Guard be mobilized on Sunday. We cannot allow for a repeat of what happened last night. I'm going to utilize all available resources to accomplish that, the sheriff, famous for his no-nonsense approach to fighting crime, said in a press release. Riots, looting, and criminal activity broke out in Milwaukee on Saturday night after a 23-year-old black man was with a long criminal history and armed with a stolen gun he wouldn't let go of, was shot and killed by police, WISN reported. Fires were set at a BP gas station, an auto parts store, a beauty supply store, and a BMO Harris Bank as targeted white people for violence, and one elected official threatened more violence if the non-specific demands of the black community were not met. So there's that one. Then I have this one. This is off of Rutgers. It says, one person shot, officer injured in second night of Milwaukee protests. And if you want to see this, there's a video in it that you could see if you wanted to pull that up. I've got all these descriptions down there or all these URLs in the description of the video. It says, tension flared again overnight in Milwaukee with one person shot and a police officer injured in the second night of riots triggered by the fatal shooting of a suspect by an officer. Police violence against African Americans was ignited sporadic, sometimes violent protests in the past 2 years. It also promoted a national debate over race and policing while fueling the growth of Black Lives Matter civil rights movement. Violence erupted in Milwaukee on Sunday after peaceful vigils by small groups of demonstrators, and police said late that night that they had rescued one shooting victim who was taken to a hospital. It was not immediately clear if the injured person was a protester. One police officer was hospitalized after a rock smashed a patrol car windshield, the city police department said. Another squad car was damaged by rioters during hurling bricks, rocks, and bottles, it said, adding that officers made multiple arrests. Police said they began trying to disperse crowds after shots were fired and some protesters threw objects. A tense standoff continued into early morning hours, punctuated by intermittent reports of gunfire. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker had activated the National Guard in case more trouble broke over the death of Sylvia K. Smith, age 23, who was shot while fleeing a traffic stop. Despite the violence, police said the National Guard had been called in as authorities worked to restore order. Aiming to reassure the community that the police acted properly, Chief Edward Flynn told a news conference on Sunday that video from the officer's body camera showed Smith had turned toward him with a gun in his hand. Earlier on Sunday evening, about 200 people had gathered to light candles near the spot where Smith was killed in the Sherman Park neighborhood. On as faith and community leaders implored protesters to restrain their anger. We are not ignorant and stupid people, one pastor told the crowd, echoing a feeling among many people of the city's African Americans that they are systematically mistreated. Every single person needs to be looked upon as human beings and not like savages and animals. On Saturday night, shots were fired, 6 businesses were burned, and police cars damaged before calm was restored in the area, which has a reputation for poverty and crime. 17 people were arrested and 4 officers were injured. At the news conference with Major Tom Barrett, Flynn said the officer who fired the fatal shot was black, and media reports also identified Smith as black. He said a silent video of the report here. He said a silent video of the incident appeared to show the officer acting within the law. The officer had stopped Smith's vehicle because the driver was behaving suspiciously and then had to chase him on foot into an enclosed space between 2 houses, Flynn said. Because the audio was delayed, he said, it was not clear when the officer fired his weapon. I'm looking at a silent movie that doesn't necessarily tell me everything that will come out in a thorough investigation, Flynn said. Based on what I saw, didn't hear, don't know what the autopsy results are going to be, the officer certainly appeared to be within his lawful bounds. Barrett said Smith did not drop the gun as ordered before he was shot. The mayor said Smith had lengthy arrest record, and officials had earlier said he was carrying a stolen handgun loaded with 23 rounds of ammunition when stopped. On Sunday evening, Several of Smith's sisters addressed the crowd, saying their brother did not deserve to be shot. "My brother was no felon," said one of them, Kimberly Neal, 24, as she wept. "My brother was running for his life. He was shot in the back." Walker announced the National Guard activation after a request from Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. But Barrett said any decision to deploy the troops would come from the police chief. The National Guard, which is under the dual control of the federal and state governments, was deployed in Ferguson, Missouri in August of 2014 after several nights of rioting over the police killing of an unarmed black man. This summer has brought deadly ambushes of police. 5 officers were slain by a sniper in Dallas last month as they guarded an otherwise peaceful protest against police killings. A gunman killed 3 officers in Baton Rouge less than 2 weeks later. Policing in Milwaukee has come under scrutiny since 2014 when a white officer killed Dante Hamilton, a mentally ill, unarmed black man, as an incident that sparked largely peaceful protests. So there we have that one. Then we have this one. This is off of Breitbart.com. And it says, exclusive. New Black Panther leader on Milwaukee. This is a war. I'm trying to get it to scroll up here. It's taking its time. Responding to the latest violent incidents in Milwaukee over the weekend, Babu Molowi, the so-called National Minister of Defense for the People's New Black Panther Party, declared, "Is it a war? Yes, it is. It's a war against black people because we're the ones being murdered." Omolowi is also co-founder of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, a black militant gun group named after Black Panther Party founder Huey P. Newton. Omolowi was speaking in an interview set to air Sunday night on this reporter's talk radio program, Aaron Klein Investigative Radio, broadcast on New York's AM 970, The Answer, and News Talk 990 AM in Philadelphia. And working on getting it to scroll. Let's see. Asked if the riots in Milwaukee following the police shooting on Saturday of an armed assailant fleeing the scene amounted to civil war, Omolowi responded thusly: "The people against terrorism and tyranny in their community is not a civil war. When you are speaking about civil war, you're talking about a country fighting against country. This is oppressed people fighting against a racist white supremacist police system, which is meant to oppress a certain group of people, more than likely black people and poor people around the country." And I think it's trying to play some kind of a video up here, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that to stop before I go on. There we go. What you see is people lashing out, fighting against the system, as it is said in the Second Amendment, so this is not new. The people in this country have always defended themselves against tyranny. So I can't liken this to a civil war. No, it's not. Is it war? Yes, it is. It's war against black people because we're the ones being murdered. We're the ones being killed, so there's been a war against us. But is it a civil war? I can't say that that's the case. Omolowi admitted that the extent of his knowledge about the shooting in Milwaukee is limited to what has been presented by the news media. However, he called the incident basically the same old that is happening around the country. Black men are being murdered. Whether he had a gun or not is not the narrative in this perspective, he said, referring to the assailant in the case. You have to understand that America is a country of guns. Are going to own them unless that police officer was threatened with that man raising the gun up at him and actually trying to do harm to him. He is absolutely wrong. During the interview, Omolowi claimed the armed assailant was shot by police officers in the back. In response, I read to him the following description of the incident as reported in the New York Times. The violence erupted after an officer killed a man who the police said was armed with a semi-automatic handgun and who fled after a traffic stop. The police said two uniformed officers stopped two people in a car about 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. The police did not provide details on why the car was stopped. Both occupants ran from the car during the pursuit. Mr. Bennett said an officer ordered the man to drop his gun and fired when he did not, striking the man in the chest and the arm. He said the gun held 23 rounds. The gunman, described by the police as 23-year-old Milwaukee man with a lengthy arrest record, died at the scene. Amali reacted. You say the man was running. If he's running, then most definitely he's running in the opposite direction, away from the police officer. Could have gotten shot in the chest. Now that is possible because he could have turned in which direction he needed to go. With the gun, don't forget, I pointed out, and the police did tell him to put the gun down. You are only telling me the police's version, Amali retorted. See, the other man is dead. He can't give his version. He continued, we have seen so many times where the police officers have made statements, but yet cameras have come out to catch them in their lies. So it's gotten to the point where America does not believe when a police officer says that someone turned toward them with a gun. And again, having a gun does not justify killing someone. I asked whether the new Black Panther Party or members of Amali's Black Militant Club are planning to mobilize in Milwaukee in light of the ongoing violence there. He replied, this incident just took place last night. We haven't really had a chance to sit down and discuss the issue to organize on it. Again, I remind you, I just found out about it basically at the same time the rest of America found out about it. We have Black Panthers, the People's New Black Panthers, Huey P. Newton Gun Club, based around the country. So I imagine there will be some type of Panther presence in Milwaukee if there is not already. So there's that one. Then we have this one off of the allnewspipeline.com. It says, will Black August come to every city across America? Is this what Hillary Clinton presidency could look like, and how Obama could stay in office for 4 more years? And here's how it reads. It says, back on May the 28th of 2016, we published a story on A&P, which we shared with our readers a warning from former Special Forces officer Tim Kennedy. It's a scary thing coming up. Just wait until July. Wait until August. We were warned back then in an interview with InfoWars. Kennedy also warned that we were witnessing a perfect petri dish for bad things happening in America. Civil unrest is coming. We were also told then. Now we learn from chilling security bulletin issued by the FBI's National Gang Intelligence Center, warning of an increased risk of violence across the country during Black August. Might Black August spread to every city across America? We pray for intervention. Much more on Black August below. It says, only weeks after our May 28th story, we published another story that shared with you bombshell proof leaders of Black Lives Matter were pushing for martial law, no elections, and a few more years for Barack Obama to destroy this country after hacked Twitter DMs from BLM leaders revealed plans to try to get the Democratic and Republican conventions canceled using continued protests that led to civil unrest. We've warned again and again that if the globalists became aware that there was no way they could complete their planned destruction of America, that they would either outright steal the election for their candidate, Hillary Clinton, or cause so much chaos throughout America using orchestrated terrorism that Obama would argue he'd have no choice but to cancel the elections after imposing a state of emergency through our nation. As we've also reported, Obama has all of the executive orders he needs to attempt to impose a dictatorship upon this country. As we witnessed last night in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with angry blacks going on a rampage and specifically targeting whites and cops, our previous warnings are now playing out before our very eyes. Unfortunately, we also expect such incidents will probably increase. After all, if Donald Trump wins the presidency, the globalists may have less than 100 days to complete their processing of destroying America. With Hillary's campaign now imploding, it's likely becoming more and more clear to them that they'll have to complete their takedown of America another way. In the comments directly above the video below, from a source within the law of enforcement community, we're warned that what happened in Milwaukee last night could be coming to every big city in America, though we pray God intervenes. As we're also told, what happened in Milwaukee is likely what a Hillary Clinton presidency will bring to America. Our deep background source also tells us what is happening now is no surprise to those who have been paying attention, especially after the FBI recently warned of a Black August plan to target for death white cops and correctional officers by black prison gangs. Has this chilling Black August plan also spread outside of the prisons? First, from our source, it says, the Black guerrilla family is the militant, animalistic, ungodly terrorist side to this Black Power movement. They rival with many other black gangs, but they will kill every white person they can. I dealt with dozens of them when I used to work in the federal prisons, and they were a serious problem. Their tactics are to immediate harass attack in numbers. Most of them are prismalist or prison Islamic. They literally believed that all white people should be slaves to the blacks. And in regard to the uptick of attacks to law enforcement on both streets, And in regard to the uptick of attacks to law enforcement, both on the streets or in prisons and jails, is rising to a point that eventually more cops will be killed on a widespread crime spree, or we will only have our special cases. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown have become the leading role models for thuggish martyrdom. This country needs Jesus. The story from Got News tells us that after the shooting of a thug in Milwaukee, who'd still be alive if he'd only followed the law, a cousin of his called for a gallon of blood from every cop, as seen in the Facebook post screenshot below. One Georgia police officer was also shot and killed Saturday night by a suspect who was still on the run, continuing a heartbreaking theme this summer of law enforcement and Trump supporters in the line of fire and simmering anger in the streets of America exploding in rage. And here's what the tweet says. It says, write my pain into a song or just go nuts and do these MF people how I feel. Too late for peace and justice. I want a cup of blood, every police officer from District 7. I need a gallon of blood each, and one of you pigs, is how it reads. And the article goes on and says, as we reported above, the FBI put out a warning that we believe everybody should be paying close attention to, not just the prison guards to which it was originally addressed. This warning helps tell us just how far down the rabbit hole America has fallen. From the New York Post story, it says, white cops and correction officers are being targeted for death by a black prison gang in what's being called Black August, according to a chilling security bulletin obtained by the Post. The warning involves an increased risk of violence during Black August, say a sternly worded internal memo issued to commanding officers at city jails. Commanding officers are instructing all staff to be cognizant of their surroundings and extremely vigilant at all times, the spokeswoman said. As always, we are regularly assessing threats and taking appropriate security measures. The FBI memo warns that members of the gang discussed ambushing officers who were parked in alleys or on side streets. A prison gang known as Black Guerrilla Family, a group tied to Black Panthers, began Black August in the California penal system in the 1970s to honor fallen members, particularly Black Panther George Jackson, who was shot to death by prison guards at San Quentin when he tried to escape in 1971. The gang, which still has members across the country, has called on inmates to kill correction officers and members of the Aryan Brotherhood. The Safety Alert sighting and inmate source claims the BGF has a 2-for-1 kill policy, that the BGF is going to kill correction officers and Aryan Brotherhood gang members to send a firm message, and the attacks will occur across the country, not just in California. The huge survival note written by Steve Quayle on the story he linked to covering the Milwaukee mess last night should be, for the remainder of 2016, be looked at as rule number 1, surviving what is quite obviously now here in America. Be where everyone else isn't and stay away when violence escalates in your area. With Black Lives Matters riders proving that they are a terroristic hate group by targeting whites in the streets for beatdowns, as shared in this story from Paul Joseph Watson at InfoWars, Sheriff David Clark's country is burning in Milwaukee, as seen in the photographs within the story and the videos below. As InfoWars story tells us, 4 buildings and police car were set on fire after cops shot and killed an armed man with a lengthy criminal record who was carrying an illegal firearm used in a burglary during a chase. All of this anger and rage spilling out over the death of a man who would most likely still be alive if he wasn't breaking the law in the first place. The streets of Milwaukee are clearly a metaphor and microcosm of the streets of America. Milwaukee area reporters were also targeted for beatdown, and as the first video below shows us, the rule of law clearly out the window last night in Milwaukee. As Quayle also warned us in another SQ note, watch the police and citizens shooting increase almost daily as the agent provocateurs seek to escalate, divide, and conquer plans prior to the election. Why would these riders specifically target whites and cops, and will they be held accountable for their actions with what should obviously be hate crimes charged against them? The conversations that took place while whites were being hunted down by blacks, as outlined below, are absolute disgrace. Language warning for the excerpts below and videos at the bottom of the story. So I'm not going to read those. If you want to read those, there they are. And there's all kinds of videos associated with this if you want to take a look at them. Mercy sakes. I don't even know what to say. I can't believe that people are that ignorant that they're going to be used by a system as corrupt as the one that we've got going. Hate. My goodness. The next one we have is redflagnews.com. And it says, man who leaked Clinton's medical records found dead. I mean, should we be surprised by that? It says, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service has issued a report saying that the father of a doctor treated Hillary Clinton for dementia was found killed this weekend after he leaked information about her deteriorating health to the public. According to the report, Vincent Fleck, the father of Clinton's physician, Dr. Daniel Fleck, was found near his home just 24 hours after revealing Hillary Clinton's most secret medical records to the public. WhatDoesItMean.com reports the SVR first became alerted or alarmed regarding the circumstances of this latest mysterious death associated with Hillary Clinton on 17 July. This report says when a known suspected Central Intelligence Agency hit team traveled about 70 kilometers or 44 miles from their New York City-based headquarters to a small village named Mount Kisco both being located in New York State. Upon arriving in Mount Kisco, this report continues, the CIA hit team broke into a specialized small computer security company's office named Right Click Solutions, located at 322 East Main Street, but were shocked and surprised by the unexpected arrival of an off-duty employee who immediately called the local police forces when he noticed the break-in, and who were only able to obtain a single laptop computer. An electronic interrogation of this company and its customers to ascertain the CIA's interest in it revealed an anomaly where this computer security company had installed a Snowden-like death man switch on the personal computer of a man named Vincent Fleck. In the SBR's investigation of Vincent Fleck, this report continues, it was discovered that he was the father of Dr. Daniel Fleck, who is a personal physician of personal physical therapist for Hillary Clinton, and whose practice is located in New York City. While SBR analysts were still investigating this case, the report notes they received information this past Sunday, August the 7th, that Vincent Fleck had been reported dead in a mysterious swimming event near his house, and that was followed 24 hours later by the leaking to the public of Hillary Clinton's secret medical reports from a Twitter account named Hills Med Records, and that was nearly immediately shut down. Prior to this Twitter account being shut down, however, this report continues, its creator was able to state, I hate to do this, but people need to know, Dr. Bardak was not honest about Hillary Clinton's health, and I have proof, and released several damaging medical documents. The most damaging being the diagnosis of Hillary Clinton that says she has complete complex partial seizures and subcortical vascular dementia. And then we click on the link to continue reading and wait for that to come up. And I'm trying to see where it leaves off here, because there we go. It says, still unable to be determined by SBR analysts, this report says, if this leak was done by Vincent Fleck acting alone, or by his son, Dr. Daniel Fleck, who was using his father's computer in the mistaken belief he would not be discovered. With Hillary Clinton's health being reported in rapid decline and her aides having to constantly keep her from falling, this report concludes, the U.S. propaganda mainstream media is now reported to be strangely silent about telling the American people how ill she really is with dementia, leading everyone to wonder if she'll even be fit for office should she win the presidency. So there you have that one. I thought that was very interesting. Now, the next one we have here is from theamericanmirror.com, and it says, leaked email shows Soros urged Clinton to intervene in Albania's civil unrest. More leaked emails from Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State prove that she was taking foreign policy advice from left-wing billionaire activist George Soros. An email provided by WikiLeaks showed Soros reaching out to Secretary Clinton over foreign policy dispute in Albania. And they have the email there if you want to read that. And I guess this is the excerpt out of it. It says, Dear Hillary, a serious situation has arisen in Albania which needs urgent attention at senior levels of the U.S. government. You may know that an opposition demonstration in Tirana on Friday resulted in the deaths of 3 people and the destruction of property. There are serious concerns about further unrest connected to a counter-demonstration to be organized by the governing party on Wednesday and a follow-up event by the opposition 2 days later to memorialize the victims. The prospect of tens of thousands of people entering the streets in an already inflamed political environment bodes ill for the return of public order and the country's fragile democratic process. Soros urges the then Secretary of State to get the international community involved and pressure the Prime Minister to forestall further demonstrations and tone down public pronouncements, as well as a senior European official to act as the mediator. The left-wing billionaire also gave Clinton a list of potential nominees to appoint as mediator: Carl Bildt, Marty Asari, and Miroslav Lavak. The email was sent from Soros' aide to Richard Verma, then the Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, who forwarded it to several of Clinton's top aides, including Huma Abedin, Jacob Sullivan, and Philip Gordon. Sullivan forwarded it to Clinton. Just 3 days after Clinton received the email from Soros, the EU ended up sending Soros' suggested nominee Lajak to mediate the civil unrest, the BBC reported. So it would appear that Soros calls the shots, doesn't it? He's the guy with the money. You follow the money, you find out who's in charge. Then we got this one off the federalistpapers.org. Kane says that, and Kane, he's Hillary's running mate. He's up for vice president. So if she gets elected and she can't serve, he'd be the one in charge of it. Says Kane says white people need to be a minority. I'll get this to scroll down here. Maybe. Well, it's taking its time. There we go. In a manipulative effort to deceive the American public about the true dangers of illegal immigration and flouting law and order, Democrats are consistently intent on framing the GOP as racist demagogues. The left tries to convince us that Republicans are waging war on women, a war on black people, war on illegal immigrants, but it's the Democrats who aggressively pander and use toxic identity politics to rally support. In order to penetrate class warfare and the narrative of an unjust America, they have made white males the scapegoat. The white man and traditionalism, leftists claim, are responsible for America's problems. I'll get it to scroll up a little bit more, maybe. Well, maybe. There we go. And then it just scrolls all the way to the bottom. It's all or nothing. All right. Wait for it to stop spinning here. Goodness. Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine admitted to a crowd, predominantly black faith leaders, gathered in New Orleans on Thursday, that progressive Democrat policies will bring down white middle-class Americans. From Paulizette, it says, while speaking to a group of black Baptists in New Orleans, Tim Kaine seemed to suggest that in order to achieve equity between the races, white people need to willingly submit themselves to a state of repression similar to what black Americans have experienced. I've never been treated badly in life because of my skin color or my gender. If I've been treated bad in life, it's because the other person was a jerk or I deserved it, Kaine said, drawing enthusiastic cheers from the crowd. I think is on those of us who are in the majority Caucasians. We have to put ourselves in place where we are the minority. And now I'll get it to scroll down a little bit more, maybe. Maybe I need to turn the fan on this computer a little bit, cool her down. See if that helps it. Boy, she's wanting to run slow today. Well, I'll tell you what, since that one's wanting to run so slow, I'll just let you read the rest of it. I got the gist of it there. And man, there is no way that we can let them people get in office. My goodness gracious. They fixing to destroy everything. All right. We'll just put that one down and move on to the next one. Okay, this one is off of the Common Sense Show, Dave Hodges, and it says here, and Obama, Clinton, and now John Kerry have betrayed America, the Muslim Brotherhood takeover of the United States government. In 2016, the United States signed the worst treaty in history of the United States. It was a treaty signed with Iran that was supposed to stop them from ever building a nuclear weapon. However, the net effect of this misguided treaty, engineered by Secretary of State John Kerry, gave away $150 billion to the Iranians. Further, this treaty was so bad that it guaranteed that Iran would develop a nuclear weapon. The treaty had catastrophic consequences for our former ally, Israel. A nuclear Iran is Israel's greatest nightmare, especially since the Iranian government has repeatedly threatened to kill every Israeli citizen. And I say former ally with regard to Israel because the Obama administration has repeatedly spit in the face of our best ally in the region. If you do not think that Israelis don't know about how Obama and Clinton treated ISIS to undermine the stability of the region in order that the U.S. would have pretext to one day invade, then you have not been paying attention. Anyone who doubts the veracity of this report desperately needs to read the information, which can be assessed by clicking on the link or the two previous hypertext links. Then it says, a match made in hell. In 2009, the daughter of Secretary of State John Kerry, Dr. Vanessa Bradford Kerry, married an Iranian physician named Dr. Brian Vale Nahid. Did you hear about this from CNN? Guess who was the best man at the wedding? Why, it was none other than Mohammad Javad Zarif. Who is Mr. Zarif? Zarif is the current Minister of Foreign Affairs for Iran. Zarif was Kerry's chief counterpart in nuclear deal negotiations just concluded earlier this year in the first treaty in its history. This is the treaty that gave away $150 billion to Iran and guaranteed they will soon possess a nuclear weapon. In effect, Kerry was dealing with his daughter's father-in-law in the negotiations with Iran. The above picture is an actual photograph that has surfaced in relation to the event, and there is the picture of the entire wedding party, all of them, there for you to view if you want to take a look at it. Of course, the defender of the crown jewels, Snopes, has declared the account to be false. However, former Congressman Alan West provides even more disturbing account of Kerry's Iranian governmental connection. You might not be, you might not be aware that in 2009, the daughter of Secretary of State John Kerry, Dr. Vanessa Bradford Kerry, John Kerry's younger daughter by his first wife, married an Iranian-American physician named Dr. Brian Behrouz Vala Nahid. Of course, you're not aware of it. Brian Behrouz Nahid is son of Nusin and Rez Vala Nahid of Los Angeles. Brian's Persian birth name is Behrouz Vala Nahid, but it is now shortened and Americanized to the media to Brian Nahid. At the time his engagement to Bradford Kerry, there was rarely any mention of Nahid's Persian or Iranian ancestry. Even the official wedding announcement in the October 2009 issue of New York Times carefully avoids any reference to Dr. Nahid's birthplace, which is uncommon in wedding announcements, and starts his biography from his college years. Gosh, I wonder why. Jay, do you think Secretary Kerry should have recused himself from negotiations with Iran at the very outset because of his long-standing relationship to his Iranian counterpart, Mohammad Javad Zarif? Let me explain. Zarif is the current Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Rouhani administration and has held various significant diplomatic and cabinet posts since 1990s. He was Kerry's chief counterpart in nuclear deal negotiations. Secretary Kerry and Zarif first met over a decade ago while at a dinner party hosted by George Soros at his Manhattan penthouse. What a surprise. I have to say, connecting the dots gets more and more frightening, but it gets even worse. Guess who was the best man at the 2009 wedding between Kerry's daughter and Vanessa and Barrow's Vala Nahid? Javad Zarif's son. Does this bother anyone at all? Apparently, Kerry only revealed his daughter's marriage to an Iranian American once he had taken over as Secretary of State, but the subject never came up in his Senate confirmation hearing, either because Kerry never disclosed it or because his former colleagues were too polite to bring it up. As Front Page magazine pointed out several months ago, the nuclear talks with Iran were a tragic farce choreographed and orchestrated by Iran, and unfortunately, we're going to have to live with the consequences. At least I hope we live. John Kerry only owns up to this connection after he was outed by an Iranian government website. Kerry concealed this connected until he no longer could run from the truth any longer. It's privileged to join President Obama in sending warm wishes for health and prosperity to the people of Iran and to all those who celebrate Nowruz around the world, is a quote. It says, as you gather with your loved ones around the Sofa Hafsin, we are proud to note that many Americans will join you in celebratory Nowruz. This year, we are once again reminded of the outstanding contributions of Iranian Americans and Iranian students here in the United States, which reflect the rich history of your culture. I am proud of the Iranian Americans in my own family and grateful for how they have enriched my life. End of quote. Perhaps Kerry would care to explain this testimony offered before Congress when Congressman Mo Brooks, Republican of Alabama, forced Kerry to admit that Iranian is a government based upon terrorist interests who would use nuclear weapons if given a chance. And there is a video there that you can listen to. It says, but it is okay if Kerry's daughter marries into this corrupt regime that is undermining the American economy and threatens world peace. And of course, none of this is in the MSM. How is Iran undermining the U.S. economy? Simple. They began to accept gold for oil from Russia, and the newly created BRICS followed suit. Formerly, all nations wanting to purchase Middle Eastern oil had to first purchase dollars, which would be issued by the oil. The petrodollar is the only backing our dollar has, and Iran began the process of undermining the value of the dollar in your bank account. Iran is the enemy of every American. And then it says the rabbit hole goes even deeper. According to a 2012 book by Human Majad, who frequently translates for Iranian officials, John Kerry and Mohammad Javad Zarif first met at a dinner party at George Soros' penthouse in Manhattan. Does it really take a leap of logic to understand who really fermented the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal? Is there any question that Kerry should have recused himself from these negotiations rather than hide behind the spin created by Snopes? The net effect of this treaty is worse than what Neville Chamberlain brought back to England when he declared that we have peace in our time. John Kerry had long-standing relationship to his Iranian counterpart in the nuclear negotiations. The two first met over a decade ago at the dinner party hosted by Soros at his Manhattan penthouse. This was an overt omission by Snopes and the MSM as a whole. Additionally, John Kerry has previously advocated nuclear negotiations with Iran during his 2004 presidential bid. He said that if he were president, he would have offered the opportunity to provide the nuclear fuel to Iran to test them, see whether or not they were actually looking for it for peaceful purposes. Are you kidding me? John Kerry, like Hillary Clinton, has a long track record of taking money from Iranian Americans connected to Tehran or lobbying to get U.S. sanctions on Iran removed, according to the Washington Post. Conclusion. This is not just about one wedding, one betrayal of government servants' oath of office. It is about a long-standing and pervasive pattern of bending the will of America to foreign terrorist interests. America, how many coincidences can you buy until you see the conspiracy unfolding right before your eyes? Muslims comprise less than 1% of the American population. However, they occupy a disproportionate number of key appointed government positions. If you have not read my previous account of how the terrorist group, the Muslim Brotherhood, has overrun the White House, you should do so now, as it puts Kerry's treasonous acts in perspective. And there's links, there's all kinds of things here that you can click on to read more about this if you want to educate yourself about what's going on with that. But man, oh man, this was news to me. I didn't know that Kerry's daughter had married into that, but wow, holy smoke. I mean, it's just another rabbit hole, ain't it? The next one is from yournewswire.com. Pentagon says $6.5 trillion is missing, sparking fears of a new 9/11. How in the world can they lose that kind of money? The Pentagon cannot account for $6.5 trillion, according to a new Department of Defense Inspector General's report, raising alarm bells not just because of the obvious lack of accountability and oversight, but because the last time the Pentagon lost an enormous sum of money, 9/11 happened. Donald Rumsfeld was due to testify about a missing $2.3 trillion before Congress on September 13th, 2001. However, the case was put on hold after the events of September 11th. The paper trail was destroyed when one side of the Pentagon was blown up, and $2.3 trillion case was brushed under the rubble. The new case of the missing trillions and the combustible political climate in the U.S. in 2016 has left many commentators fearing that something big is about to happen again. And that article goes on if you want to read the rest of that. But Lord have mercy. Well, forewarned is forearmed. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Then I got this one. This seems to be, to me, people with not nearly enough to do. As the BizPac Review reports, college students ramp up demands and refuse to live with whites. A group of students at Claremont College, in search of a roommate, insists the roommate not be white. Student Care Yurna, I guess that's how it's pronounced, posted on Facebook that non-white students in need of housing arrangements should reach out to either her or two other students with whom she plans to live in an off-campus house. The post states that people of color only will be considered for this living opportunity. I don't want to live with any white folks, Urina added. Dahlia Zeta expressed concern to the anti-white discrimination. People of color only. Maybe I'm missing something or misunderstanding your post, but how is that not racist thing to say? This is, and the quote says, this is directed to protect people of color, not white people. Don't see how this is racist at all, responded AJ Leon, a member of the Pitzer Latino Student Union. People of color are allowed to create safe, people of color only spaces. It's not reverse racism or discriminatory. It is self-preservation. Sarah Rothschild, another Pfizer Latino Student Union member, stated, reverse racism isn't a thing. We don't want to have to tiptoe around fragile white feelings in a space where we just want to relax and be comfortable, commented Nina Lee, a women's studies major. I could live with white people, but I would be far more comfortable living with people of or with other people of color. White people always are mad when they don't feel included, but at the end of the day, y'all are damaging ASF, and if a person of color feels they need to protect themselves from that toxic environment, they can. Quick to try to jump on people of color, but you don't call your friends out when they're being racist. ASF noted Tyronia Smith, an Africana Studies major and resident assistant for the 2016-2017 year. I'm not responding to no comments, and nope, I don't want to have a dialogue. It is not clear whether or not this refusal of dialogue represents the approaches to conversation on racism with fellow students encouraged by professors of Africana Studies and the residence life staff at Pfizer College. Another RA and Black student union member, Jessica St. Fleur, added to the thread of comments, white people have caused so much trauma on these campuses. Why in the world would I want to live with that? Bring that into my home, a place that is supposed to be safe for me? The mission and values section of Pfizer College's website states, intercultural understanding enables Pfizer students to comprehend issues and events from cultural lens beyond their own. It also adds that Pfizer College supports the thoughtful exchange of ideas to increase understanding and awareness and to work across difference without intimidation. We have the right to be heard and the responsibility to listen. Communication, even in its most vigorous, should be respectful and without intent to harm. But you know, if white students said that they wanted to have people move in with them or roommate with them that were only white, they'd be kicked out of school. So I found that very interesting. And then is my very last one for today. This one is your warm and fuzzy to make you feel a little better after all that rubbish that we've had to put up with out of the news. It says, Mad World News reports clerk overhears guy let me try that again. Lord have mercy, my eyes are playing tricks on me. Clerk overhears guy's question, acts fast when he sees what's by his feet. A confused-looking man wandered into his local Lowe's store and began talking to a sales clerk. When the manager overheard what he was saying, he made a quick evaluation of this strange guy and noticed something amiss about him. Then he acted fast when his eyes caught what was on the ground near him. Owen Lima went into the hardware store near his home in South Regina, Canada, desperate for one thing, but with heavy feeling that it would end as bad as all of his attempts leading up to this one. He was running out of options, and despite what he's probably heard about this retailer and others like it, he was willing to take his chances. When the manager came out, he took one look at him and sent Lima sobbing. After suffering an incident that left Lima with a brain injury, the grown man has had an impossible time trying to get a job. Refusing to give up and live off government assistance alone, he has stayed the course despite consistently being told no, since evidently nobody wants to hire a guy that's slightly slow and also relies on a service dog. When he walked into Lowe's, he had his trusty companion Blue by his side. However, the manager had something surprising to say about that. According to CBS News, manager Paul Gallo heard about Lima's struggles but saw something else. A hard worker who doesn't give up, which is more than can be said for many entitled millennials. Gallo immediately offered the man a job, but placed a single condition on his new position as customer service assistant greeter. Customer service associate greeter. The caring employer insisted that if he was going to bring Blue to work every day, that the dog gets a uniform also to wear on the job. And they made a little smock for the dog to wear. It says, we don't care about your past, what you are. We care about what you can do. Gallo told Lima when he offered him the job. Now the friendly pair can be seen at the front of the store, welcoming shoppers and managing carts, with Blue right there wagging his tail in his bright orange Lowe's vest. It says, with pride for their new employee, Lowe's Canada uploaded a photo of Lima and Blue to their Facebook page that immediately went viral by over 18,000 people who shared it to show appreciation for a big company who gives people a chance. With all the disrespectful things that have been happening at the company's competitor, Home Depot, from employees wearing anti-American hats to firing a veteran for his disability, it's refreshing to see that Lowe's will do just the opposite. So there you have your warm and fuzzy for the day. Say people can do nice things for each other if they try. So with that, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I thank everybody for being with me in the chat room, and all my lurkers and all my Memorex viewers that will tune in later. Glad to have everybody with me, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day, whether it's raining or sunny, wherever you are, and hope that you come and join us again tomorrow at noon when we'll be back here doing some more news, God willing. See you then. Bye.